These types of operations actually started under the Bush administration, and the Bush administration did nothing about it, although they knew about it. When Eric Holder found out about these tactics, he immediately stopped it. He said, no, we're not going to have this.
Found out about what? That was Congressman Elijah Cummings today on Morning Joe talking about the investigation into the DOJ's Fast and Furious program, not to be confused, of course, with the 6-part Vin Diesel Hollywood blockbuster. The investigation has pitted House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa against Attorney General Eric Holder. Last week, Issa threatened Holder with a contempt of Congress vote, saying the Attorney General is refusing to hand over documents. The two are meeting this afternoon at 5 p.m., while the contempt hearing is still scheduled for tomorrow. Really interesting back and forth over Eric Holder, who is a man, we talk about the catbird seat. I mean, he is the man, sort of the face of a lot of controversial positions the administration has taken, whether that's Arizona immigration, whether that's voting ID laws, whether that is the Fast and the Furious program. We heard what Elijah Cummings had to say. I want to play some sound about Joe Walsh just about an hour ago on MSNBC responding to Elijah Cummings. Let's hear what he had to say.
The Bush administration cooperated with the Mexican government. They let the Mexican government know what they were doing. They traced the guns. Fast and Furious, our government under this administration purposely turned the other way and stopped tracing thousands of firearms. So this is a much bigger, a much more serious breach of justice.
Glenn, where do you land? Is this much ado about nothing? Is this enough? Is this all part of an effort to undermine Eric Holder, his position in the administration? Is this a legitimate concern? I mean, the talk of conspiracy theories, the talk of, this administration trying to use this whole thing as a pawn to have greater gun control. What do you make of it?
I think the only answer to this is the appointment of several special counsels with unlimited subpoena power.
Solutions.
Yeah.
That could feed your show for years.
Yes. I think the Chairman Issa would be more than willing to have that accommodation. Look, it's, what are we, in June? I don't even know the month.
I don't know the days,
right.
So we're fine.
The sense that this is heating up in the middle of a campaign is, obvious. I mean, there are answers that have not come out from DOJ in terms of who knew what and when, and I think there are serious questions to be answered here. And I think it is clear that DOJ was slow-walking Congress on this, but I think the notion that this has to involve some sort of a constitutional confrontation at this particular moment in time seems a little bit far-fetched.
But Congress's rep is so intact. People love him right now. Why not?
Never call them a do-nothing Congress if they can hold administration officials in contempt. That's their...
I will say, I thought this was... let's play Representative John Micah on Fox the other night talking about this and sort of giving credence to the conspiracy notion theory. Let's hear what he had to say.
People forget how all this started. This administration is a gun control administration. They tried to put the violence in Mexico on the blame of the United States. So they concocted this scheme and actually sending our federal agents sending guns down there and trying to cook some little deal to say that we've got to get more guns under control.
Sam, I love that. Like, this is a gun control administration, as if that's like the worst thing you could possibly be.
First of all, full disclosure, my wife has worked in the Department of Justice on Fast and Furious matters, so I have to put that out there.
Thank you for the disclosure.
I appreciate that. Secondly, it's insane to suggest that this is a gun control administration. They've done virtually nothing on guns. In light of massive gun violence episodes, including Gabby Giffords, nothing happened. So that is pure black helicopter stuff right there. If we're going to continue this...
To say nothing of the fact that maybe being a gun control administration, if they were a gun control
God
administration,
forbid, yes,
would be a good thing. But anyway.
And I think, we can, quibble over whether, if the Bush program was the same as the Obama program and what the differences are. But clearly, I think it's clearly the people in the Department of Justice weren't operating out of some malicious backdoor attempt to get some legislative outcome in the United States. I think it's utterly silly, and it sort of ruins the whole point of the debate.
Well, also, lives were lost in this too. And I think
a federal agent in order to get support for gun control.
And that is the implication of that's the implication of his remark, and it's sort of offensive.
It's preposterous.
I think it's actively offensive. I do want to talk about a little bit dial it back to Eric Holder and his role, because we know just from Dan Klaidman's book in Killer Capture, they talk about the sort of difficult role. I mean, the Justice Department and the role of the Attorney General is always a strange one, because you are at once serving an administration, but you are not supposed to be explicitly political. And that it is, Eric Holder has a certain amount of difficult things on his plate right now. In 2010, there was rumor that he might have left the White House, but Valerie Jarrett intervened and said, look, this wouldn't be good for us. This specifically wouldn't be good for your friend, the president. And he stayed on. But certainly this stuff doesn't exactly encourage, I would imagine, is not the kind of stuff that makes you want to go to work every day, Glenn.
Well, yeah, I've actually heard different about Holder. I've heard that report about Jarrett wasn't necessarily accurate, and that he very much, if there's a second term, would like to stay on. I'm not sure that the administration would feel exactly the same way about it. But this is a guy who has not shied away from controversy, and he clearly has an agenda that at times has seemed more progressive than the president's, much to his dismay. So this guy is a lightning rod.
They haven't always been on the same page, have they? I mean, it started very early with the trial of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and that was a big rift that developed between the White House and the Department of Justice, and it's really carried over for a while. But Holder takes a lot of spears for this administration, and we all think of it as him acting sort of off the script, but in some respects it probably helps him out, because he's the one who's out there in the forefront while they can do things in the background.
You can see why Robert Kennedy was his brother's AG. That relationship is so key. You want somebody who has your back and who's listening to you.
And if you were to tell the White House right after the midterm elections in 2010 that the biggest congressional investigation a year and a half later that House Republicans had going on against you was Eric Holder, they'd be really. I mean, Cylinder is off the table.
Yep.
It really hasn't been able to get much his talons and much else. I mean, so the White House can handle the Holder thing. There are worse things that could have happened that never happened.
Fast and Furious, not the Hollywood blockbuster, nor a political blockbuster as perhaps Darrell Issa would have wanted it.